Welcome to Here's the Thing, our weekly program where we interview interesting people about interesting subjects and what goes on in our communities and our province and our country. Our guest today is Mr. Tim Hudak, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the Ontario Real Estate Association. The area develops and administers courses on behalf of the Real Estate Council of Ontario. Mr. Hudak became CEO in 2016. Prior to this appointment, Mr. Hudak served the people of Ontario as an MPP from 1995 to 2016, reaching the honorable position of Leader of the Opposition as the Leader of the Progressive Conservative Party of Ontario. And the last time we saw each other, you probably don't remember, but I do, I hosted a fundraiser for you at 𝗬𝗲𝗱𝗀𝗀.
Very nice. Beautiful place. It was a great night, and thank you for doing that. And you still keep good company, and it's a beautiful restaurant, and I like your studio here.
Yes, we tend to surround ourselves here with beautiful art. This is one of our studios. We have other studios in 𝗬𝗶𝗶𝗀𝗀, but this is one where we do radio and we do TV. We also have other production facilities. I listen to you often on 1010, but so we're not quite as big as that. But we do serve a large portion of Portuguese Canadian community and the Lusophone community, and that's one of the reasons that I wanted to speak to you today. Because being involved, especially in real estate, it's important that we speak a little bit about it, as it affects so many people. Has the political bug left you?
It never gets out of your blood. And thanks for saying that. You're right. 21 years I spent in the politics. Our leader of the PC party. It's good meeting people like you, leaders across the province of Ontario. But you know what? It's rewarding. I wouldn't change those 21 years for anything. It's a big job, and you're always in the spotlight, and it was time for me to move on. But I wanted to find something that was motivating, that when your feet hit the floor, when you wake up in the morning, you're excited about your job, you've got a mission in life. I mean, much like you, right? That's what gets you going every day.
Yep.
And the value of home ownership, helping people who move to Canada, who grow up in Canada, get the keys to their first home that they own. Vince, that is so motivating, and I was very excited to take on this job as the CEO.
As the CEO of 𝗬𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗀, what is your, can you describe for us a little bit of what it is that you do and your organization?
Yes, you bet. So the Ontario Real Estate Association represents over 80,000 realtors in the province of Ontario. They're your highly trained professionals who are there to go to bat for you if you're buying or selling a home, a business, a property. We currently are running the Ontario Real Estate Association College as well. So most of the realtors in Ontario went to our school. It's now being transferred to 𝗬𝗲𝗀𝗀, so we're in the middle of that transition. We provide services to our members from ongoing education to training on the standard forms that they use, develop their leadership and volunteer skills in the community. And we also play a big role in advocacy. And not only do we advocate for our members, we advocate for people who are homeowners to stand up for them, help preserve or increase the value in their home. And we lobby for people who want to become homeowners or invest in owning homes like apartments. It's a big part of Canada's culture, a big part of our success, and we want to help create that next generation of Canadian homeowners.
Speaking of real estate, we all know that when we call that it's hot, especially in the GTA, and I'm sure spreading across the province. We're seeing things that probably we never saw before. With people bidding on properties, with the different types of commissions, the amount of advertising that we see out there by different realtors, and it's become a hugely complex commercial enterprise where homeowners may become confused. How do you navigate through this myriad of different things that are being thrown at you, from 1%, 5%, 6, and bidding wars and so on. How can people go with a clear mind trying to buy a house today?
Well, the most important thing is to work with a trained realtor, a professional who is going to be your trusted advisor at your side when you're making the biggest investment of your life. Somebody who knows the market, they know where prices are going, they know what the schools are like, they know if there's going to be a condo built behind you or if there's going to be a nice forest there. So make sure you know somebody that knows the neighborhood and that you make a wise investment for your own future. And you're absolutely right. The market has a lot of demand right now. There are more and more people looking for homes today, and that's because it's been such an important part of Canadian culture. Like many of your audience today of Portuguese background or Slovak, like my grandparents that came here, the Chinese, Indian, whatever, when they came to this country, people wanted to buy a home. They did that because they knew it was an investment. So my grandparents saved up every penny they could. They worked hard. They bought a home. They turned the upstairs into an apartment to help pay the mortgage down. And later they bought a business. It's a story of a lot of people in your audience. To be successful like that in Canada, big part of the Canadian dream, and you should work with a realtor to help you along your way.
I remember coming to Canada in 1970 and going to live at Brunswick and Bloor, and we bought a house. We bought a house for $32,000. In those days, it was fairly simple transaction. Today, obviously, it's much more complicated. It involves a lot of lawyers, appraisers, and everything else. What do you, as a basic, what do you suggest that a potential purchaser of a home today consult in purchasing a home? Lawyers, sourcing a proper real estate agent that fits your needs, etc. It's not as simple as it used to be.
No, you're absolutely right. From the time that you bought your first home or that I bought my first home, it's become more complex and a lot more expensive. So number one, always work with a professional realtor who's going to be your trusted advisor at your side that knows the area you're moving to. Always work with a financial advisor too, because in all likelihood, you're going to have to borrow a lot of money to pay for your home. Do that in the best way possible and make sure that you can afford it. Not only the mortgage payments, but you have enough money up front for a down payment in a very competitive industry. If you know a lawyer, they or those professionals will often know one. Look, this is an investment that pays off in the long run. Real estate has been proven to bring benefits to families over their lifetime. So when they retire or they want to move up when the kids come along, it's a great place to make sure you have that type of investment for your long-term success. Real estate also then, if you own a home, that can help backstop if you want to start a business down the road because you have the equity in your home. And the last thing is, you can't live inside a bond or a stock. So a home not only has good investment returns, but it's where we raise our families. It's the place of our most precious memories. And in this environment of COVID, it's been increasingly a place of security and safety. So all of that tells you it's a critical purchase for everybody who gets into the market. Use solid professionals to make sure you buy the right one.
Looking at real estate today and seeing the prices of real estate, the cost of a home, do you think these, especially in Ontario today, GTA, do you think that these prices are real or are they artificially high? It just doesn't make sense to me as buying as a real estate buyer also that it makes sense that the percentages that a home has been going up each year that it makes sense for a buyer today.
Well, it really gets down to basic economics. There's a lot more demand, but limited supply. So what's driving the demand? Well, as a result of COVID, and I can give you some more details about the research we've done, more people are interested in owning a home or moving up to one that has more space, maybe because of work from home, the office, maybe grandma's going to move in with you, or you want a yard to kick the soccer ball around with the kids. So there's more demand as a result of that. Mortgage rates, you talk about when you bought your house or when I bought mine, mortgage rates are near record lows, so the financing is readily available. We also have a generation of millennials, and millennials are now the biggest generation in Canada's history, who are getting jobs, they're getting married, they're having kids, and they're looking to get a home. The other driver of demand is the baby boomer generation. The parents of the millennials have the most money in savings, and they love their kids, right? They love their son or daughter, they've got a job, they went to school, all is good, but they can't get a house. And they'd like to see them move out of the house and get a place of their own. So you see a lot of financing coming from parents as well to help get in the market. All of that is driving demand in addition to it being a smart investment. But the problem is, compared to the 1970s or 80s and even the 90s, we're not building as many homes. We're not keeping up with the demand in the marketplace. You mentioned how legally complex it is. In some areas, because of all the red tape, all the costs, all the fees, you have to pay $125,000 in fees before the first shovel goes in the ground to start building. So big demand, limited supply, that's why prices are going up. And when immigration returns post-COVID, that will be another driver for price increases.
When you mentioned millennials, just recently read a statistic that baby boomers have about $3 trillion in funds that are going to be transferred to other generations below. Millennials, 55% of them suggest that they feel that they're deserving of an inheritance and the parents should leave them an inheritance. What do you think about that attitude?
I'd like to have it if I could have it, I guess. Look, I do think that I guess it's not a surprise. And I feel bad for millennials because the problem is they're now starting out further behind the highly educated generation. And they are farther behind their parents or grandparents. Like a great history of Canada that attracted immigrants from Europe and around the world has been that you could actually get a place of your own. You could afford it. Every generation had a better chance of owning a home than the one before it. Until now. In 2016, we started going backwards in that area, and millennials are paying the price. So yeah, it's nice to have an inheritance. I get that. And look, with these prices, they need all the help they can get in the marketplace. But at the Ontario Real Estate Association, we have ideas to help, ways to help millennials get into the market, and very importantly, creating more choice and more affordable options in the market for first-time buyers.
The real estate has always been a very interesting business, and for people to own something that's tangible and to grow for their retirement, hopefully. As you said, you can't sleep inside a stock or a bond. Now, interest rates have been historically low. Thus, a lot more people are affording a home where normally they wouldn't be, and many of them are still in Toronto, especially, are qualifying by the thinnest of margins, but they still get into the market, hoping that interest rates stay low. Isn't there a fear that if inflation, rears its ugly head, that there could be a little bit of, not a little bit, but a big adjustment in how people are going to be able to survive owning a home?
Yeah. Look, I'm middle-aged, and in my lifetime, we've seen many ups and downs in the real estate market. We're on a good up right now, but you should always be smart and plan that there will be a down cycle. Look, when we get through the COVID crisis, there'll be pressure on interest rates, so mortgages won't stay this low. So I asked myself, well, what is my job? We'll make sure that our realtors are highly trained, professional. We have a code of ethics to follow, and we have a tough regulator now because of legislation the Ford government has brought in to crack down on anybody who breaks the rules. But they're the ones that are going to give the advice on the value of that long-term investment, whether it's going to make sense for you if you can afford that home. Our job also is to make sure we get more housing in the marketplace, speeding up the approval process for new homes, cutting some of the red tape. And in cities like Toronto, you're looking at ideas like densifying in busy urban areas like Yonge and Eglinton, for example, maybe laneway homes, building on top of subway or GO stations. People might want to live there because it's easier to get to work and not to pack up the boots and the shoes and the parka and all that during a Canadian winter. So we put a lot of ideas on the table. To their credit, the Ford government has adopted a lot of those ideas in a legislation called More Homes, More Choice Act. We'll keep pushing, but we want to make sure that for the millennial generation or new Canadians when they come, that they'll have a better chance to own their own home and raise their own family there.
With the land becoming more and more scarce, obviously, within the city of Toronto, and people moving more and more to the outskirts looking for a better deal, it seems to me that the pressure may be decreased a little bit in homes, especially in condominiums in Toronto. But looking at the way governments are looking at housing today, and the bureaucracy of even getting an approval, which I have experience with, it's becoming more and more difficult to even get a building permit. It takes months or years now, and governments, including today's budget, is all about social housing. It's all about building rentals. It's all about I understand that there are a lot of people out there that are underhoused and they need assistance. But governments aren't talking in assisting. People want to own a regular home. We're moving more and more into socially assisted housing. If we keep moving in that direction, are we incentivizing people to really go into that direction, into social housing, instead of trying to build themselves up to buy a home for themselves? This government policy sometimes doesn't make a lot of sense to me, even though I agree that people who are underhoused should be properly housed.
Yeah, all right, it's a great question. So let me think about it this way. When I bought my first house in 2002, it changed me as a man. I cared more about getting to know my neighbors, getting good relationship with them. I invested into my home. I cleaned it up. I just felt more ownership of it.
I did the same thing.
More active in the community. Same with you, right?
Yep.
And there's a lot of studies, Vince, that show this, that children of homeowners do better in school, they do better in work than renters, all else equal, because you get more involved in the community, more stability. So my point there is homeownership is a good principle that has helped make Canada such a strong country and such a strong middle class. And while we certainly have to concentrate on helping people who don't have a home get one, social housing is important for those who are on the edge of becoming homeless. But every government policy should be looking at how do we help move them from social housing, maybe to an apartment of their own, to a home of their own. We should try to move people up that ladder. That's what government should be focused on, is creating that opportunity for every Canadian equally.
Would you become a landlord today?
Tough one, man. My wife's folks, my in-laws, are landlords. They own a number of apartments. They've done so for a number of years. They get a lot of reward in that, providing places for people to live. But I remember as an MPP, I had a lot of people, Vince, who had come in that had tenants who took advantage of the system, who didn't pay the rent for months and months on end, and then destroyed the place. And the system was out of balance. So those mom and pop landlords would say, like, why did I get into this business? This is my savings for my retirement. I'm going to hand it down to my kids down the road, and it hurt them. So we still need it. A lot of the new rentals has actually been, in condos that get rented out by mom and pop investors. But what the government needs to do is put that back into balance, equally protect mom and pop investors as well as tenants. Make sure there's an incentive to pay the rent at the end of the day, and make sure there's not big delays in the system if somebody's not paying the bills or they're trashing the place. I still think it's rewarding, but I do think the current system is discouraging people from becoming landlords. We need more of that for people to have rental choices.
Yeah, I've had the same experience, and it's very frustrating that it takes you 8 months to a year sometimes to get a problematic tenant out, and the system is just not there to balance things out, and it's very frustrating. In the meantime, governments are encouraging people to build rental stock, but if you don't get the balance in change to protect the landlords also, and I'm not saying that every landlord is exemplary. I'm saying that there should be some kind of a balance and quicker methods to at least have a resolution, and so it is very discouraging. But it's also part of housing in this city, and I don't know how this situation is going to be resolved. I know a lot of desperate people out there that have their homes tied up, not getting any income, and a lot of them are pensioners that depend on that money to survive.
Yeah. Like my in-laws, they're pensioners, retired, and they depended on that for their retirement. They didn't have a government pension, for example. That was their pension. And you make a good point too, because if that apartment is taken by somebody who is not paying the rent, who's breaking the rules, there's other people out there who are honest, who are looking for a place. A single mom trying to raise her kids, for example, a new Canadian who has arrived, somebody who, is starting their own small business and moving out of their house. They're looking for an apartment. In the meantime, they're out of luck while this rule breaker is taking up a good place. So we do need to put balance in the system to treat tenants and good landlords on a better footing to make sure more people can find a good place to call home.
Getting back a little bit to your organization, I'm sure ethics are spoken a lot, in this hot real estate market. With so many transactions being made, with so much movement being made, how do you keep track of how much if ethics are being followed, and who polices that?
So the police for that is an organization called the Real Estate Council of Ontario, RECO for short, under the government of Ontario. So this has been a big thing for us. We want to make sure, from the Ontario real estate point of view, that realtor at your side has North American leading ethics, professional standards, education, and if they break the rules, they take advantage of somebody, we want them kicked out. We don't want them to take away somebody's dream of owning a home. So we went to the then Kathleen Wynne government and we said, our legislation is out of date. It's from 2002. I'll tell you, in 2002, the average price of a home in Toronto was, I think, $235,000, right? $235,000. You couldn't buy a doghouse for $235,000 in Toronto these days.
That's true.
Showed the rules were out of date. So we said, let's raise the bar. Let's become more demanding on realtors. Let's make sure that we have higher professional standards. We said, let's increase the fines and give RECO, the regulator, the judge in the system, an ability to kick people out, suspend their licenses, take them away. And the Wynne government said yes, and the Ford government said yes. And now that legislation exists in Ontario. It's called the Trust and Real Estate Services Act. It went into law beginning of this year, started playing a role. And we're very excited because now we can be leaders when it comes to protecting your investment integrity in the system, when before we were falling behind.
The Wynne years should have been led by someone named Tim Hudak, but that didn't happen, unfortunately. Now we have a conservative government in place. Just talk a little bit about politics, even though you probably don't care to talk about it. But what is Ford doing well and doing badly?
I think, a couple of things. Number one, I'll talk with my work hat on, and number two, I'll talk with overall.
Of course. I'm asking you myself as a conservative because I don't like what's happening. Going from 70% to 32 or something like that is not, it's unusual to see such a drop.
So when it comes to housing, Doug Ford has been an incredible champion of home ownership. He's spoken at our conferences, and he promised he would work hard to bring homes closer to people, and he's delivered. I mentioned the legislation that he brought forward around realtor ethics and professionalism. I mentioned the legislation they brought home, the More Homes, More Choice Act, that will create more affordable homes for people and encourage mom and pop landlords to turn part of their home or another investment into good rental properties as well. So big check marks on those fronts. He's also talked about ways of helping first-time home buyers get in the market. So very impressed with this. I've had a chance to visit the Ford family home over the years, knowing Doug and his family through politics. He and his dads and I served together. And I know that home ownership is such an important value to the Premier himself. So he's been excellent in trying to find ways to help people get keys to their own home. And second, I just cannot imagine the pressure overall in this COVID crisis, right? When Doug Ford ran to become Premier, nobody ever heard of COVID. They never imagined our province would be paralyzed. And I think he's showing a strong backbone. He cares about people. He's listening. And he's got to keep track of all of this data that seems to change every day about the disease. So I think he's showing very solid leadership. He's got a big heart, and he wants to get that balance between protecting people's health, but also their mental health, and also keeping people in business. It is probably the hardest job right now in Canada, but he's up to that job, and I'm proud to see the work that he's doing.
Well, hopefully you'll be able to rebound. You know, we have another year for to go to an election, and hopefully he can rebound and maybe shuffle his cabinet a little bit and rejuvenate things. But with COVID helping out a little bit, you heard today's budget. If you were to describe it in one word, what would you say?
It's a lot of spending. A lot.
That was my thinking. There's a lot of spending and no income.
Just to go back to the province, and I'm happy to talk more federal.
Yeah.
You know, we put some ideas on the table and spoken to Premier Ford and his cabinet ministers. He said, you know, if you want to get the economy going again as we emerge from COVID, real estate can play a big role. Because Vince, you know, when you buy a house, you don't just buy the house, you buy new furniture, appliances, you're going to fix it up in a few places, you pay the movers. When somebody buys a home, it's over $80,000 in spin-off activity. So if you want those jumper cables to restart the economic engine of Ontario, how about you eliminate the land transfer tax? That will get more people buying homes. That'll get more people selling their home because now they don't have to worry about a big tax if they downsize, empty nesters, for example. And we calculate that will create a lot of jobs and about 32,000 more housing transactions. So anyway, they're listening. Hopefully it'll be successful. There's a way that real estate can help get Ontario's economy firing on all cylinders and get people back to work and payroll. You know, on the federal side, I worry that governments could intervene too much in the housing market. They might make it harder for people to get a mortgage, for example, to want to get in the market. So it's happy nothing was in there against Canadians for that. I worry that might be a future plan. They did put money into broadband. That was good to see. The top question our realtors are getting in small towns is no longer how many doctors are there, what are the schools like, it's how is the internet service.
That's right.
So that was helpful to see. And they also brought in some programs to help people save on their energy costs, maybe fixing up the furnace, putting insulation right in the walls. I think those are good because that'll help, particularly for middle-class families.
Well, hopefully that program will work if materials don't keep going up the way they are.
Yeah, that is a very good point. Very good point.
Because, you know, when we've had, being in the construction business, when you go from $20 to $80 for a plywood, it's kind of discouraging to do any renovation. So
very good.
Yeah, so, hopefully we'll get out of this mess with COVID and get back to normal and, get back into rebuilding, and I really appreciate the time that you gave us. I think it was very important as an education tool for you to describe to the community what's out there as far as your organization is concerned. And real estate has become one of the main principles of our lives. I mean, everybody's always talking about it, and I thank you so much for giving us this time. And one day we'll have a fundraiser when you decide to become Prime Minister.
Well, if you'll have me back, I look forward to coming to the studio and seeing you again. Vincent, thanks for having me on the show. Appreciate your leadership, how you get the message out, and it's just great to talk real estate. And it's an exciting career for folks too, so if they're interested, they can get more information through 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏com or Humber. Hard work, you got to be an entrepreneur, you got to hustle, you got to be a people person, but there are a lot of rewards and satisfaction.
Without hard work, nothing is achieved.
There you go.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hudak. You take care of yourself.
Good to see you again.
Thank you.